The time is now. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrzej Shapowal. I'm a founder of Flame of Fire Ministry. I welcoming you on this program. This is my new program I just recently started, and God placed in my heart to share about a vision, about global work, about harvest time. That we cannot miss this moment in what God is doing right now around the globe, and this is very critical for us to understand. So I'm doing this program for all the English speaking people around the world, that they can understand what God placed in our heart and the message that we are carrying, to help people, to see themselves from heaven to earth, to have knowledge and renew their mind with the kingdom message, that they will find their purpose in life. And I believe this program will help so many people in different spheres from different approach, to understand the importance of this moment and the time that we are living now. So this program will take place once a week, but just because we have promotion that is taking place for our KDC College, and KDC College is connected to this global work and to the vision that God placed to Flame of Fire Ministry. That's why we talk more the importance to separate the time and to position yourself, by the feet of Jesus, and allow him to transform your life from one degree to another. Like Paul says, do not be conformed to this world. And but in the first place, he said, Romans chapter 12 verse 1, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercy of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but being transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is uh, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Anyways, I believe that the soil of this vision and KDC College, which we're gonna be talking about today with my good friend David, and he's gonna come and stay with us for a few minutes and share from his heart, because he went through the KDC College, and and he was the first one. I mean, the first year when we launched our college, and he came to the first year, and he's still in our ministry, and we're gonna ask him a lot of questions, and I'm gonna ask him a lot of questions what God is doing in his life right now, and I want to hear from his heart, his journey. But I believe, there is a such a privilege to present your body, for the 9 months, to present yourself as a living sacrifice and allow God to transform your mindset. And I'm telling you, you're gonna see God from different lens, from different projector. You're gonna see, and you will taste the goodness of God and a lot of more. But we're gonna be sharing our thoughts throughout this program. David, I'm welcoming you. Thank you so much for being with me. I love you deeply, and I'm excited to hear from you. And please, if for our audience, if you can share a little bit your background and where you coming from, and what's your story.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home, originally from Seattle, Washington area. And I grew up in a Christian home, was always going to church. And when I was like a teenager, I got involved in youth ministry and was doing a lot of ministry things. But around that time, my sister ended up going to Kingdom Domain, and she, invited me to go to Kingdom Domain. So I started to come to Kingdom Domain. I don't even
But
think I
you need to
realized back.
listen. You need to explain to people what is kingdom domain. They are confused. We are talking about kingdom domain college. You are speaking about kingdom domain. Please tell them, give them more understanding what you are talking about.
So yeah, it was roughly 2016, and Flame of Fire was doing an annual conference called Kingdom Domain Conference. And back then, I remember it was taking place in North Carolina. And I remember I ended up coming the first year, and then I couldn't not stop coming because God would always do something in me. And I'd come back fired up for the Lord. And I was, involved in ministry and doing all this stuff, but there were still a lot of moments where I would struggle. So I'd come in January, I would, be fired up for Jesus, but then as months would go by throughout the year, I was struggling in my mindset, struggling with the way that I see God. And I remember just backsliding into sin. And I was like, God, I feel like I'm doing everything that's quote unquote correct. And what was interesting is my experience with God usually just kind of didn't align with the theology or understanding that I had growing up and what was kind of taught. And I always had this one perspective that I first need to become this holy, righteous, and then God can use me. But then I would experience the other side. And so, I kind of growing up in this Christian background and in a Christian home. But around 15 years old, I was at a youth camp, and that's where I got baptized by the Holy Spirit. And if you're from a little bit of the Slavic background, that's kind of the big thing that we focus on at camps is, baptism of the Holy Spirit. But that's kind of where my journey began. I began
Mm-hmm.
to pursue God, and then going to these conferences. But still, there was a lot of moments where I was confused, and I didn't. I don't even think I knew that I was confused. But people would tell me and prophesy all these big things of God. I see God using you on stage. I see you preaching. I see you doing this, this, and that. And it sounded great on paper, but there was a moment that came where I'm like, God, I just want freedom. I just want to know you. I want to like actually know how to live this life correctly, how to do life with God, and what does a life of faith look like in our modern generation. And so I had this whole Christian background and growing up and go to church Sunday to Sunday. Thursdays was youth, doing youth camps, putting all of this stuff together. And yet I didn't even realize that I knew more about God than actually knowing God himself. And so
Mm.
I remember years go by, I'm going to every Kingdom Domain, year by year. And then in 2020, I couldn't make it to Kingdom Domain because of finances, but I was able to pay for the online version. And I said, God, there's no limits. So I locked myself in a room. Actually, it was a sauna. It was like a separate building. And I was like, God, you can encounter me here. And so I was
Wow.
watching online, and I was like, I just imagined as if I'm there in North Carolina. I'm like, God, I don't care. Do what you need to do. And that's where I heard actually about Kingdom Domain. It was in 2020, right before COVID
About
hit.
Kingdom Domain
Um,
College.
yeah, about Kingdom Domain College. That was the
Yeah,
first year
as you were
in
watching
2020.
Kingdom Domain Conference.
Yes,
I
thank
don't
you.
want to bring any confusion, okay? I want people to understand what you are talking about because it's all about Kingdom Domain, and then yeah, we have annual conferences, Kingdom Domain every year in the beginning of January. But then you heard about Kingdom Domain College, yeah, as you were watching Kingdom Domain Conference.
Yep. And the conference is happening in January. So I'm locked up. I'm watching it. I hear them announce about the college. To be honest, I was never really big on, not that I wasn't big on, I wasn't planning to go to Bible school or Bible college. I wasn't really thinking about that. There was actually a couple of really great ones in the area, a lot closer. And
Mm-hmm.
nothing really, like it never really fell on my heart. But as soon as I heard about Kingdom Domain College, something in me was like, man, I have to be there. Like I knew that I knew. I was like, man, I gotta go there. Something just on the inside of me was almost like responding. And
Wow.
I signed up, I registered. I was like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna make it. I don't know how financially, but I'm gonna take this step of faith. So I paid the application fee, submitted my application, and that's kind of where the journey began. So it
Yes, we're
was
gonna go from here, but people need to know that that Pastor Sergey, who is the director of this college, he's doing this promotion right now, which is taking place. You see all the information on the screen. So yeah, we wanna share this with you. It's a good news, and if you're gonna apply today, you're gonna use this promotion, and it's gonna help you big time. But anyways, David, I really wanna hear your experience, from the beginning, from inside. You know, previous days I was having this program with my wife and then with Pastor Sergi. Yeah, and we were talking about the purpose. We were talking about things that God placed in our heart concerning that college. But I believe people, they want to hear the reality from the inside, and I
yeah.
want you to share with us. First of all, What were your expectations when you were coming to the kingdom domain, and then what start taking place from there?
And if I actually backtrack, now that you're saying that, I'm remembering all these memories. I remember I'm, so bold, so full of faith. I apply in January, but as summer came around, I started getting these thoughts of doubt. And I remember there was a moment, what if you go and nothing changes in your life? What if
Mm,
you go and you're still going to be stuck? You're still going to be struggling with sin. You're still going to be all of this. And I started having
mm,
these moments of doubt. And I had this decision moment. And I remember I said, you know what, God? I'm all in. I'm going to double down, all in. And my thought process was actually, I'm going to give it all one more time. I'm going to give it all one more time. And I'm going to believe that, no, I'm going to go and my life will be transformed. I will
yeah,
never
I
be the
believe
same.
someone needs to hear this, David. This is very important what you are saying. You need to highlight this
Yes.
because I believe people are struggling with this.
Exactly. And the thing is, I was a leader in the church. I was a leader in our youth ministry team. I was almost like me and my best friend. We were like the right hand of our youth pastor. And so I was doing all this leadership stuff, but I couldn't even really open up with my struggles. So honestly, when I even came to college, if it was so amazing to finally put down this leadership title and
Mm,
actually to be like, you know what, I need help.
mm,
Yes, there's a calling on my life. Yes, there's a purpose on my life. Yes, I know God has a destiny for me, but I'm struggling. There's these things that I'm battling and I don't know how to deal with them and to be able to come. And so I came with this expectation where, no, God, I know you're going to, I believe you're going to change my life and I'm going to be all
mm,
in. Because I was honestly, I was fed up. I'm like, I'm not going to play Christianity. I'm not going to play
mm.
religious games. I was like, God, I'm either all in or I'm all out. And I believe that this generation and my generation, that's kind of how we are. When we're all in, we're all in. If you're Gen
Come
Z or
on.
any part of this generation, you're sold out. And you can even see that right now. I have friends in Christ for all nations and they're burning for Jesus and they're preaching the gospel and all of this. And it's so beautiful. And I think that's the beautiful part about our generation is that when we're all in, we're all in and we're sold out for Jesus. And so I was
So
kind of in
good.
that place where I was like, you know what? I'm choosing to be all in. And God, if you don't change me here, if I'm not going to be transformed, but I came with that expectation and that hunger. I wasn't just expecting for other people to change me, but my heart posture was like, hey, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to work on, because it's a lot of effort. This school is really a transformational school. And I realized you could be in the same environment, same people. One person comes out completely transformed.
So good.
Another person was in the same environment, but
Mm,
nothing happened. And it's quite interesting. There was people that were around Jesus in his time. Some completely radically transformed,
so good.
others completely different. And so expectation definitely plays a role, but I'm all in. I'm sold out. God, I believe you're going to transform me. I believe you're going to change me. And that's literally what took place. But there
Tell
was
me about,
definitely
David, tell me about your first day. Tell me about the first day when you came and you see, others around you. What were your experience the first day of Kingdom Domain College?
I remember we come first day. There's such a hunger. There's such an expectation. I don't know. I don't know if it was hype, but I definitely think that first class was just hungry for the deep things of God, hungry for the Lord. And so I remember you were sharing, and I actually loved what you did, Pastor Andre. You actually had us all come out and share what you're expecting and believing God for. And I
Mm,
think that played a key role because there's something so profound of when we release what we're believing
mm,
and what we're believing for. And sometimes we don't even know what we're believing for. So when we actually process it and we're able to speak it out, and I remember in that moment just sharing the things that I'm believing that God will do in my life, what's going to take place out of these 9 months. And I remember this like the environment, the energy was high. Everybody is super excited. We all move in together, guys in one house, girls in another house, and it's like this spiritual womb. Truly, how it was talked about at the Kingdom Domain leading up to it months before, that it's going to be like this 9-month womb where you're going to submerge yourself, and every day there's Tuesday through Friday, there's worship in the morning, there's sessions in the morning, and then you're doing life together. And so I remember the first day, and we're coming out and we're sharing. And what was so profound, because I remember time goes by, and when I re-listened to what I was speaking out, everything that I spoke and I was longing for and my expectation that I had, all of that happened. but actually even more. And so it's so important to have that expectation and to release that. But I remember just this environment and this womb and this expectation and hunger, and it was just such a beautiful moment, beautiful time where we all came together from different states, different backgrounds, and just hungry for Jesus, hungry to know hungry to know God, and to
Yeah,
grow and to grow
yeah.
and to to
Yeah,
become.
David, so good to have you here. So good. I see you have so much insight, and I really want to hear from you. But I want us to watch a video for everyone who's watching us online right now. We're gonna watch this video about KDC, and then we're gonna continue to talk. And I want to hear and ask you more question from you, David. So stay tuned. Let's watch this video, and then we're gonna continue to talk.
Walking today, dreaming of tomorrow, not sure what yesterday means, seeking, searching, yearning. The answer has always been there. The solution has been around for ages. The very thing that is so sought after is already within. Every moment, every experience, every step, building, creating, forming, molding a destiny, a future, a calling so beyond, yet so close to grasp. The same power that rose Christ from the dead is within you.
Every person created in the image and likeness of God has God-given dominion implanted within. It's so vital for us to walk out our God-given authority, impacting and influencing every sphere of society. Kingdom Domain College desires for sons of the kingdom to arise. They are those who are kingdom-minded, full of Holy Spirit power, activated on the territory of their gift to impact and influence the world. KDC is the atmosphere or environment specifically created to cultivate each student into the calling God has designed for them. The idea behind the 9 months program is representative of a woman who carries her child, protected and nourished in her womb until the child is born. KDC is that spiritual womb, cherishing and raising up men and women of God who will then step out into destiny.
We are passionate to raise up healthy leaders, those that know their identity as sons of God, heirs to His kingdom, those that carry the very DNA of the Father Himself. They are forerunners. They are those that will pave the way to take the gospel of the kingdom to the ends of the earth. They are those that do not fear vulnerability, embracing a lifestyle of openness and transparency, embodying the very heart of the Father in every detail of everyday life. You are sons and daughters of the Most High God with a calling and design from the Creator of the universe Himself. Step into the most radical, rewarding season of your life.
Dedicate a year to walk out a passionate pursuit of God, to release the kingdom into every sphere, to go into all the world. Will you answer the call? Are you ready to advance the kingdom?
Yes, the time is now to apply for Kingdom Domain College, and such a beautiful opportunity.
Yes.
I believe such a great opportunity for those who pursue more, who truly want to fulfill God's will on this earth. So don't take this lightly. I encourage you to go and register today, and especially we have this promotion going on right now. It's going to help you, and then I believe your life will never stays the same. So David, one of those students, but he's the son of God, and he's one of that men who went through the KDC College. And then I want to hear the whole journey, at least a little bit in a short version, the way God was leading you, and your story, as you were going through the KDC College. If you can share with me, the first changes that you start noticing inside of you as you were, staying at the KDC College.
Yeah, I remember we had these secret place rooms dedicated at the college, because when you're living together, sometimes it can be, you have a roommate. And so it made it a little bit easier to have a time with God. And we would like schedule our time, like that's our time, we use the room. And I remember I come to spend time with God. And often we have our own perspectives and approaches. And again, kind of what I was sharing, I grew up from a specific, in the Christian background, but my theology and the way that I kind of saw things often didn't line up with my experiences with God. And I remember I come to spend time with God, and I still remember He's like, do not pray, do not worship, do not do anything, just be with me. And to me, that sounded like the most
God spoke to you this?
unchristian.
Hold on. God said this to you? Can you
Yeah,
repeat
well,
this one
that's
more
right.
time? No.
Do not pray, do not worship, do not do anything, just be with me. And
Mm,
to me, that sounded so ungodlike. That sounded so unchristian like. And I was like, God, if this is you, like, why are you saying this to me? Why would I not pray? Why would I not do this? He's like, because son, you think that you need to do something to please me. You think that you need to do something. You need to pray. You need to worship for me to love you, to be pleased with you. And it came from this perspective of performance. And I didn't even realize this, but often, when we're growing up in our circles and things like that, oftentimes we know a lot about God, and it's from this religious approach. And I know I growing up, I thought I had to perform for the God
mhm,
in heaven.
mhm,
And it's
mhm.
really connected with family and a lot of that. And I remember just spending time with him, and I hear this, and to me, it just didn't sound like God. And I was like, what do you mean, God? And he began to explain to me. And I remember by me just being still and being with him in the room and not trying to do anything, it began to break off this perspective that I need
Mm,
to perform, that it's by my works, my self-righteousness. And God began to really heal my heart, heal a lot of things of rejection, and from that father perspective, and father wounds. And a lot of people, we don't even realize we do ministry. We do a lot of these things. But the disciples were first with Jesus before he sent them out. But to me, it was a little bit different growing up. It was as if, hey, we need to send you out before you're going to be with God. And and often it's a right heart. We want, the young generation to do ministry, to be with God, and hopefully they'll change because they're doing ministry. But what begins to happen, and I've seen a lot of young people, because they're doing ministry but they don't know the heart of the Father, they burn out and they actually fall even greater
so
into
good.
sin, and they begin I remember even growing up with young men, they were burning for God. And then it's sad because time goes by and they don't know the heart of God. They actually completely steer away from God because they never had that relationship. And so I remember God began to deal with me in that first encounter moment that I had, where he would begin to uproot these incorrect perspectives. And where,
Mm,
hey, it's not you just serving me as a slave, you're a son. You're not just yes, you have a heart of a servant, but first and foremost, you're a son. Be with me, be with me. And so I remember he began to just break down, and break off these incorrect perspectives. And it was this
that's
beautiful
awesome.
journey of the sonship.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And so many people, they need to hear this, uh, and then have to practically, having this journey, time of transformation and how it looks like, in your own
Yeah,
life. But David, if you can share some moments, throughout the 9 month, as living that time, not just the spiritual sides, because we talk a lot about,
yeah.
that spiritual side, being at a college, you learn, you've been transformed in that presence, in that environment. But there is a life around this, because you guys are living together and there is a lot of different events taking place. If there is some moments you can share with us, the whole life of KDC.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing is when you're living in a house, you have a roommate. We had about two people per room. Thank God. I hear other Bible colleges have like 32 people in a house. So we have, we're blessed to have two people per room, and it was amazing because you just have a roommate. It makes it a little bit easier. But still, living with 8 to 10 guys in a house, first and foremost, it's amazing. But the second thing is you bump into each other's characters. And I think that's where the reality comes out. You can be all the spiritual you want to be during, Sunday and your services and conferences. But when you're doing life together, it's where everything begins to come out. But I think
Hmm.
that's the beautiful thing, even about Kingdom Domain College. You're not just coming to classes and just learning the spiritual side, but you're learning how to do family together. And I think that's where truly things begin to come out, and you begin to learn how not just to lead from a perspective. I think even the second year for me was very the leadership side. And it
Mm-hmm.
really showed me you can be a quote unquote leader on the surface, but that doesn't mean anybody is following you. And I think when people see your true life, when how they see you in the home, it truly teaches you you can't just lead by your words, you lead by example. And so I think it's beautiful because you do family together, you do life together. And where Pastor Serge in that video was saying vulnerability, it's where you learn to be vulnerable. And I think the most powerful thing about a leader, and what I've noticed and I've learned even through college, is to be able to acknowledge your faults, is to be like, hey guys, I was actually wrong in this moment here. And that actually gives you the authority again as a leader, because people, they don't want to just follow somebody who speaks one thing but lives something else. But when they see that you're actually growing and transforming, but you're being real and vulnerable and honest. And I think with brothers, you're living, you're vulnerable. And we would have these home groups. I remember every week, even in the beginning, we'd actually do it twice a week. We would have a family night, and then the other time it would be a small group setting. So where we have worship, we talk about the Lord, and we talk about all this stuff, and all about this deep spiritual stuff. But then having these family nights where we break bread together, we would, have dinner together. We would, actually, I think the best thing and the most beautiful moments would happen spontaneously when you're living together, and you have to be going to bed to wake up in the morning. But 1 a.m. in the garage, I remember we would have these couches and we would just gather and we would just be spending time together talking about, and out of nowhere, spontaneous prayers break out, or these deep talks about the Lord, or vulnerability moments where we open up and we're being real and honest. And so it was beautiful because it really shapes you and it really shows you the kingdom family side. And I think it really positions you where I'm like, oh my goodness, now as a husband in the future, as a father in the future, I can actually see what family needs to look like. There's that spontaneous side. There's these moments of dinner, these moments where you break bread with one another, and there's moments of vulnerability. But then there's also these moments where it's hard. There's moments where I still remember I'm second year, I'm leading a small group. A guy shows up late from the gym and he doesn't want to join us because he thinks, there's a couple of things taking place. And in that moment, he doesn't join. And I had to kind of, I felt like a bad leader because I had to kind of raise my voice, because I had to kind of put my foot down. And I remember I go to spend time with God after, and I'm like, God, I feel like I failed. I feel like this, and that. I feel like, why is he not part of the small group? And in this moment, it's not you 1, 2, 3 step of how to be a leader and how to lead a house.
Mm-hmm.
You actually, it comes out of who you are. And I remember I was spending time with God and I feel like I failed. But afterwards, the next day, he comes up to me. He's like, David, thank you for confronting me. Thank you. I actually needed that. Thank you for doing it. He's like, keep on doing this. And so I began to realize in the second year as a leader, I had this thing where I didn't want to confront people. And I wanted to, I would rather steer away. But as I was leading with 2 other guys in the house, one of them was like, hey, if you guys are not going to confront, then I'm not going to either. And I was so happy that he said that, because it began to bring to the surface the things that were actually fear of man.
Yeah.
The things that were actually fear of man, where I didn't want to confront guys as a leader. And oftentimes what we do is we think, for the sake of peace, but actually it's not the sake of peace. What we're
Mm-hmm.
doing is we're actually pleasing people, and we have fear of man. And so there was a journey where layer by layer, God actually began to break off the fear of man. I remember in these moments and vulnerable moments, and it actually set me free so much, because I'm no longer basing on what people think, but I'm basing on what God thinks about me. And so it's not just the spiritual lingo, spiritual side, but it's where you come in contact with your true self, with your
Mm-hmm.
true character, with your true motives. Why are you doing what you are doing? Why are you leading the way that you are leading? And now it's coming to the surface, and you have an opportunity. Are you going to cover it up, or are you going to deal with it?
But
And
I
I think
believe,
that's the
David,
hardest.
I believe that's very spiritual because that's the reality, the spiritual reality that needs to take place in our life.
Exactly.
I wanna ask if there was some moments of encounter, because we have worship and prayer going on every single morning. We all come here and then we just cultivate this and then we pray and worship, and many times God comes in such a powerful way that change our program, and then we stopped teaching, and then sometimes the worship and prayer was going for 4 or 5 hours. If there is a moments like that that you can share with us, moments of encounter.
Man, there were many moments, and I'm not saying this just because I
Yes.
truly I think what blew me away by this college is the reality of God, life with God. And so I'm going to try to share and just kind of bring out some of those moments. I think the biggest thing for me even was in the beginning, just to what does it mean? I just came back and I was preaching at a kids camp, preaching at a couple of youth camps this summer, and it's quite sad. But I realized a lot of people, we're in this womb here, we're in this flame of fire and culture and all of this, and we think that so many things are normal. But I realized a lot of
Mhm.
people, it's not normal for them to actually fix their eyes on God. What does it mean to worship in spirit and truth? What does it mean to actually talk with God, to hear God's voice, to put your attention on God? And because of this, I was kind of reminded right now, when I came for the first time in the first year in the mornings. Really, what was happening is I was learning, how do I step into the holy of holies?
Mm.
How do I actually hear the voice of God? How do I actually take my whole inner world and I focus on God? And I remember in the beginning, the biggest thing that I begin to tell people, I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter whether you dance or whether you lay down, whether you're on your knees, whether you're standing, sitting, that the form doesn't matter. I said, do whatever you need to do to get your attention on God.
Mhm.
And I remember I began to learn how to just, see God, hear God. But I remember one of those moments, like you said, the worship would go for 4 or 5 hours. I still remember there was a day where worship, instead of going for 2 hours, I think it went for the full day, half a day. And I remember for the first time, I've never had this experience in my life. And I think I've had glimpses after this, but I don't think I've ever had this up until this day to this extent. I remember I was driving afterwards, and it was hard for me to drive, and it felt like I was just filled with the Spirit of God. And it was actually that day we had a home group, and that home group was at Top Golf, and Top Golf was where we're hitting the golf balls. And I remember I was sitting on this couch at Top Golf, and I felt like I was just filled with the Spirit of God, and I felt so satisfied. Like, that's the best way that I can explain it, because
Mhm.
people often say, um, you know, and, and, they're attracted by these things, other things in the world, and sin and all of that, and oftentimes, the things of God, it seems like there's a sacrifice to it. But it was just this moment where I was just satisfied by the presence of God, where it says,
So good.
where it's almost where it says in the Bible, "Do not get drunk on wine, but be filled with the Spirit." I felt filled with the Spirit of God. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what is this? What is going on with me? And I just felt like the satisfaction of the presence of God. And I remember time and time again from this moment, I remember I would just in the mornings just learn to hear God, to see God. What does it mean to step into the Holy of Holies and just experience the presence of God? Another time I had an encounter moment, I remember we had some guest speakers and they came and they were sharing of how for us to be vulnerable and just the power of that. And I remember coming out in front of the whole class and sharing. And in this moment, I knew that it was a breaking moment for me to share and to share these vulnerable things, and fear of man was being broken off. And I remember as I would share, I remember I had this moment where I experienced the power of God came upon me. I got down on my knees, and I remember just the power of God just embracing me. And I really felt like the fear of men in that moment was being broken off of me.
Mm.
And I remember everybody came around me, just praying for me. But it's like an onion, layers being broken off, layer by
So
layer by
good.
layer. And so I remember these moments were under the power of God. But if first there was that decision moment, there was a lot of invitations during the college,
Mm.
invitations where I got the opportunity to respond. And I remember it was scary. I had to be vulnerable, but I was like, God, I'm all in. God, I'm all in. And I remember in these moments, I would encounter the power of God. I would encounter the presence of God. I would encounter transformation, fear of man being broken off of me. I think that was the big thing for me. Fear of man, rejection. I don't even think how much even we that grew up in Christian religious circles, maybe even not religious. I even honor a lot of the conservative circles because they have this fear and awe for God, this fear of the Lord, and it's beautiful. I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong. There's just these perspectives, but I think my heart was always, God, I want to see you rightly from every perspective, the fullness of
So
you.
good.
I want to see you rightly. I want to see myself rightly, and I just want to live rightly. I don't want to just, do ministry and then have my life. I don't want to just do, Sunday service and then have my life. But with college, what happened is I learned to do life with God. So even with the second year, we had business track and the whole business plan. It sounds so spiritual now, but I had to have a business plan, and I didn't look for it, but it found me. I remember I was at a retreat at the end of the second year. I come to spend time with God, and I remember just I come to my room and I begin to pray and worship, and very similarly like before, He's like, "Hey, no, don't worship and pray right now. I want you to take out your notes." And I
Mm.
took out my notes and he began to talk to me about my business plan. And so to me, like this was the most mind-blowing thing about even this college was it's not just spiritual lingo or to set me up to preach because I'm like, to set me up to be on a stage. No, it's to set me up to be a son, not on a stage, but to be a son. And as I'm a son and out of sonship, I know the heart of God and I actually know how to do life with God. And I remember he began to speak to me about my business plan, and I started my business plan. And
So
then
good.
when everything works, I'm like, glory to Jesus. And it wasn't me to begin with. But when there's
Wow.
hard moments, I'm like, God, you told me, so I'm trusting
Wow.
you. And there's
Wow.
this moment where it says the faith where it says the assurance of things hoped for. And I remember, like you said, what was the life like when you asked me that question? What was life like? It was this family environment. It was this vulnerability environment. It was this transformational environment, but also this environment of how do I pay for school? How do I pay for food? How am I doing with my finances? And I remember first year, I had all the finances ahead of time, so I paid ahead. But there were moments with the second year where I had to pay and figure out work and things like that. But I still remember there's moments where I remember God was like, I want you to give $500 to the church. And I remember I was like, I had to pay $500. I had a bill to pay, but I felt like God was telling me to give $500. And in this moment, I was like, God, what do you mean? I need to pay $500, but you're telling me just to give and donate $500. And in this moment, again, like I said, there's so many invitations throughout the college, and it was an invitation. Will I trust God with my finances, where the Lord is my shepherd and I lack nothing? Or
So
I'm gonna
good.
hold these finances and not allow God. And I remember I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the step of faith. And I gave those finances. And I remember a couple weeks passes by, and that bill that I needed to pay was 3-4 weeks out. And I gave the 500 to the church because I felt the prompting of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember 3-4 weeks goes by, I forget about it. One of the mornings, this is so profound, so profound. One of the mornings, I'm in prayer in worship, and I remember I have to pay a bill. And this fear enters my mind. And as soon as the fear enters my mind, a different voice, which was the voice of the Lord, do not worry. By the end of the day, everything's going to be taken care of. I forgot. I don't even remember what date I need to pay and what I just know it's coming up. And I was like, I had this moment. Will I believe the voice of fear, or which was the devil, or will I believe the voice of faith, which was God? And I remember, God, I'm going to believe you. Like you cannot make this up. That class, that specific session, by the end of that session that day, I get a notification. Item was sold on eBay, $150. Another item was sold on eBay, and I think before I had something sold for like $150. When I look at everything, it was over the amount, $500 of what I need to pay. And to give you some context, the item that was sold was because the way that I paid for college, I did computers, but the item that was sold was a hard drive. I do not know why somebody would pay $100 something for it. I think I would barely pay $10 for it. They paid $150 for it, or it was two hard drives. I think I don't remember exactly, but it was like $80, and it added up to 150. Besides the point, it was an item that I wouldn't pay $10, $20 for. They cover it, everything that I need to cover, and it was the voice in the morning. I forgot about it. It was the voice of God, and I was like, oh my gosh, God, you are faithful. You are so faithful. And in these moments, you no longer, people can tell you all they want that God is your provider. But now I know that I know that I know that I know. It's this
So
assurance from
good.
the inside. And
So good,
so
David.
it
I'm
begins to grow
honestly,
God.
honestly, so good to hear that. I'm celebrating this victory and what God is doing in your life and just observing your
Speaking of
life.
$500, there's
What
a
we,
$500 promo for Kingdom
come
Domain
on.
College.
Yes.
And
But I want,
actually, the application fee was $50, and it was actually waived just yesterday. So you don't have an application fee. So if you feel on your heart that you need to register and sign up, and you're like, man, I want this in my life. I want to hear the voice of God. I
can you
want to
repeat
know.
this one more time? Can you repeat this one more? Give people more information. Can you repeat this one more time? I think this is very important what you are saying right now.
If your heart on the inside, you're like, man, I want to know God like that. I want to hear God's voice. I want to have these moments of encounter, moments of just trusting, and what I was even sharing about those finances, and trusting Him with faith. There's a $500. Speaking of $500, that God did that in my life. There's a $500 promotion right now. If you register in the month of August, right now, it's going to be $500 off for your tuition. You can see it actually on the screen. And actually, there's a $50 application fee that is being waived right now. There's no fee. I actually personally last night took it off a month of August. So if you register right now, it's $550 that you are saving. I'm telling you, it's the best. It has nothing even to do with finances. This will change my life to do
Mm,
life with God, to live a life of faith, to live a life of purpose. I mean, to truly live out this life of destiny, calling, now stepping into what God has for me, walking out this life of, business and ministry. And it's amazing. But first and foremost, hearing His voice, truly being secure in God, and
come
knowing
on.
that I'm covered by Him, and living with Him. And the best thing to position you and position your life for success, to learn how to. I used to think that prophesying is for men of God. The Bible says, earnestly desire the gifts of the Spirit. Prophecy is for everyone. The prophet is to equip the body, the saints, for the work of the ministry. I never knew that all of us can prophesy. It's to equip the saints so that they can prophesy. Evangelists are placed to evangelize, because people say, I can't prophesy. I'm not a prophet. My question is, are you an evangelist? They're like, no. But you're still called to evangelize, correct? They're like, yeah. So can I propose to you that you can prophesy even though you don't
Come
have the
on.
office of a prophet? So you learn how to move in the gifts of the Spirit, hear God's voice, your destiny, purpose. I'm telling you, if there's something on the inside, and it's like your heart is responding, and maybe your heart's beating, maybe I should go. I believe that's the Holy Spirit putting it on your heart. Don't miss this opportunity. On top of that, there's a promotion. Sign up, register, kdcglobal.org. It changed my life.
The
I am
time
forever.
is now.
Time is now. Like, no finances, no money. If I could do it again, I would pay double. Like, other colleges are so expensive. I would, there's other colleges that are $15,000, $20,000. If I could do it again, I would pay double. Like, honestly, even triple the value what I got spiritually for my life. My God, it's invaluable, because it's not just me. It's gonna transform my kids, my family,
Come
everything
on.
to come. My life is no longer the same. I'm no longer, because people, they think that when they get married, they only multiply the way they look. Can I propose to you? You multiply who you are here.
Come on.
And if you're not healed here, you're gonna multiply hurt here. And so I begin to realize, God, heal me, transform me even more, so that my kids can experience the love of the Father. They don't need to go through rejection and deal with everything that I dealt with. But my ceiling will be their floor. I'm like believing my kids are going to prophesy from a young age. They're going to know God from a young age. They're going to see the things in the Spirit. They're going to, that's what I'm believing for. But all of this came because of this college transformed my
David,
life. So
this is
don't
fire.
moment.
This is fire. This is fire.
Abraço,
Wow.
Lele.
Yes, what a beautiful God and wonderful God. Just hearing you I'm excited just to see what God is doing in your life, and I'm telling you, this is real. This is real. So sign up today, and that's why we're doing these videos for these programs for a few days now, to encourage everyone to sign up and to have this moment, and don't lose this opportunity. David, thank you
Yeah, and
so much.
I want to add a little bit. Don't lose this
Go
opportunity.
ahead.
Often we're captivated by school, college, work, getting married. I'm like, the best thing that you could do is 9 months to set yourself up for success. How do you know what to do in school if you don't know your purpose? I came to college, I figured out my purpose, what everything is, and how everything is for me. So for me, it was perfect. I actually finished my bachelor's, and that summer, it was a perfect transitional moment. I was like, I'm gonna go. But maybe you're debating, and you're like, I'm not sure. I just want to break that lie. Don't be deceived by the devil by
Correct.
focusing. I gotta get married. I gotta have kids. I'm telling you, the best thing that you could do is allow God to submerge yourself in a womb for 9 months. Allow God to transform you so that you can actually know what to do in family, what to do when you have kids, what to do, how to buy a house, how to do all of that stuff. Don't be lied. And even right now, in all of the shaking, and you might be even scared. People are so scared with the elections and all that stuff right now. What's going to happen next? I'm telling you, if you're not secure in the voice of God, in your relationship with God, you never will be. Nothing, no amount of finances, no spouse, no kids, no house, no career is ever going to make you secure, but God and his voice in your life. So don't be deceived by the enemy, and don't be deceived by the physical things that you see. The best thing that you can do is submerge yourself for 9 months and truly allow God to heal you, restore you, and to truly hear his voice and know how to do life with God. So I'm telling you, don't miss this opportunity. Sign up, change my life. Don't be deceived. Before, I was like, man, should I say this or not? I can say this with confidence. Many people, they're like, oh, I have school. I have this and that. I'm like, don't be deceived by the enemy. He wants you to be captivated by everything that you see. But the only way that I'm actually secure and at peace now is because I hear his voice, and I can come into my secret room, and I can be like, and he can actually, he's like, son, no, you're on the right path. Keep going. You're right where you need to be. Do not be afraid. I'm with you. And so just want to say that, put that
So,
pointer out there.
David, thank you so much. Honestly, thank you so much. So, we bless you guys, and everyone who's watching us. Go online and apply as we're watching our last video, and then I'll see you in the next programs. And blessings to you, and stay tuned. And like we are sharing here, just go and apply, and you will never regret. So let's watch this video. When I look at your face, I see faces through your face. I see people through your life that will be impacted through you, because you are chosen by God to bring reformation, to bring transformation into your generation.
We have covered 580 miles.
He's looking for a willing person, not a gifted person.
California, we will see you in 3 days.
It's just a preview. Guys, like, this is just the sneak peek. Man, this is gonna be powerful, guys. This is gonna be so powerful.
Sons look at the Father and modeling what the Father is doing.
You are children of God. You are a royal priesthood. You are no longer sinners, but saints. We carry his likeness and his image. We represent him, his heart, his thoughts, his power, his creativity.
In the last days, this generation will have more and more clear dreams and visions and prophetic understanding like never before.
I've got the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead alive in me. He's living in me. Jesus says, greater works shall I do. These signs shall follow them that believe.
The way you want your future to act towards you, start acting right towards your future.